I'm Dane Rose, and in this video, I want to talk about the division of self, and I want to look at it from a couple of different angles. But to understand the division that I'm talking about, there have been a few times in my life where I have seemed to be on the edge of a springboard experience towards something that I think I should want, or that I thought that I did want, and I will notice myself sabotaging. So let's kind of list a couple of areas here. We've got areas of money, making more money. Well, see, there you go. All it takes is the idea of making more money to delete the screen there. Let's do it this image instead. So we have making more money and sabotaging that. We have certain moments of popularity where, a bunch of people start praising me in a way that is unfamiliar, and suddenly I want to get away. We have an opportunity to make a lot of money or, capitalize on an investment, but no, I don't want to do that. Maybe I'll wait till the investment goes down in value and then I'll sell the investment. And so those are some things that I notice in myself, including, I was doing an app project recently that promises to have significant benefits in opening up my world. And I found myself feeling both insecure and also enraged, incredibly upset around the edges. And now, one possible or probable interpretation of the pattern is that there's some part of me that is undermining my success, well-being, joy. Another example recently is I noticed how easy it was to feel ecstatic joy with breathing meditations if I breathed in a circular way with presence and said a simple mantra. It's free, takes 15 minutes, feels ecstatic. It's the easiest thing in the world to do, but I don't want to do it. Meaning once I discovered how easy it was and how ecstatic I felt, I immediately began doing various things to not enter ecstatic bliss. I tightened my muscles. I would start the timer and then instantly go do something else. I would feel more frenetic. So obviously some part of me does not want to feel ecstatic bliss for free and easily. Now, these are human patterns, so they're not particularly personal. I will notice at times when I treat my wife really well, she punishes me. And if I treat her badly, she treats me better. I don't like that situation. It seems very counterproductive in terms of, does she want to be punished or does she want to be treated well, right? Because if you treat someone really well, if you reward them when they treat you well, and then you leave them if they treat you badly, then you're going to be treated well. You just keep leaving the people that treat you badly and stuff. And so doesn't seem incredibly self-loving, right, as we would think of that. And then I'm also looking at some teenage kids that have been in a traumatic situation, and my wife and I are helping them to improve their life. And there's a certain amount of hostility and pushing, right? Like in the old abusive situation, in some way there was better behavior. But now there's a lot of like, how much abuse can we give as kids to people trying to help us? How far can we go? And maybe even precipitate a return to the abusive situation, because, it's one thing to be helpful to someone that wants to be helped. It's another thing to be punished for offering, a way out of the abuse cycle. And so, the starting point, as we look at all these kind of just different patterns that all, seem to slice down this way, that there's a trajectory towards sustainable well-being, and there's one part of the self that says, no, I don't want to improve, I don't want to grow, I don't want to do this. And there's another part that says yes. So that's what I want to focus here, is what's going on within each one of us, within the country, within the planet, within the species. What's going on with this part of us that wants to be all that we can be, that wants to be happy, and the part of us that wants to be unhappy, the part of us that doesn't want to be all that we can be, the part of us that wants to punish those that would give us gifts and does so quite effectively. That's what I want to look at. And I want to look at it from a couple of different angles. So let's take this kind of yes, so we can look at it as a yes-no paradigm. There's some part of us that says yes to anything, and there is some part of us that says no to anything. And where this pattern shows up is when we say no to the directions that promise to bring about sustainable well-being, and say yes to familiar patterns that are not very good for us, right? Which are bringing us misery. Like my familiar thoughts are bringing me misery, and my transcendent thoughts are bringing me ecstasy. And so having determined that all it takes is 15 minutes and a mantra to feel ecstasy, I've said no to it. Right? I'm delighted when a thought comes up that I can start exploring so as not to, have to enter that ecstasy. So what part of me is puzzled by that? And what part of me is delighted to avoid ecstasy? And what part of me misses the ecstasy, right? And what's going on there? So I want to kind of come back to this line, this distinction. So we've got the part that says yes, we've got the part that says no. Now, in religious paradigm, we would say that there's a good part and there's a bad part, right? And that, or that there's good people and bad people, right? That would be the crudest sense. There's good people and there's bad people, and bad people, they're just bad because they're bad, and that's why they're bad. And, usually, God, not me, of course, but God is going to punish them, kill them, burn them alive, destroy them, torture them for eternity. It's, a somewhat simplistic solution. It's quite an electrical bill to have all those fires and all that stuff, and, lots of fossil fuel, carbon, not a very carbon neutral scenario, but basically the bad people will be disposed of. And it's a little bit like the scapegoat. Now, the scapegoat was just a goat, somewhat randomly determined. Maybe some cults had specific traditions for picking the goat they were going to pick on, right? They picked the goat they were going to pick on, right? So twin goats, you're the scapegoat. Okay. What do we do with the other goat? Well, they're fine and we'll treat them well and stuff. But the scapegoat, we're going to throw rocks at it, blame it for all our problems. A goat, right? It's all our problems are caused by this goat. And we're going to run this goat out into the desert, kill it maybe, beat it up, curse the goat, project everything evil in the cult onto a goat, and then send the goat off, right? And so that's the beginning, right, of that particular paradigm. And then later, it's the bad people that will be burned alive for eternity. They won't be stoned and driven out to the desert. They'll be executed or, driven out to, and the criminals, of course, kill them. Kill the people that are destroying the system, right? Because we designed the system, and the system is built on distinctions. It's built on language, it's built on lines, and if you cross the line, we'll kill you. If you stay on this side of the line, welcome to the cult, right? And so there's the good people and the bad people, and with the subsequent question of what to do with the bad people, which is always, one of the reasons it's nice to have a sociopathic, all-powerful God is, we can all pretend to be all pious, like we don't care, we don't want to hurt anyone. We're just doing the sociopath, their will, right? It's God's will, right? We're just in service, humble service to the Lord as we hack up the bad people to do the duty, the duty of the Lord, or at least, we can imagine, right? We're not going to do it because we're pure and holy. We're very holy members of our cult, our religious cult about goodness and all this stuff. And all these bad people that we've decided are bad. And then, God will punish them someday, right? We may not kill them ourselves, but someday, won't it be nice, once we get to heaven and look down on all those horrible people being punished for all the slights that they caused to us and, to the system. So there's the good and the bad people. There's also the idea of ecology. Now, it's ecology and duality. Now, all things begin with the one. Is. Reality is. It begins as an uninterrupted ecological whole, right? Everything is. Is. Now, this is before language, which means it's before the Great Divide. And the Great Divide, the descent into the knowledge of good and evil, the descent into distinctions, is the initial polarity, black and white, up and down, male and female, the initial polarity. But we go much further than that. Once we've created the initial polarity, we create the next one, and we basically take everything that is and divide it into 64,000 bits. That's the number of words roughly in the English language. And then we combine those bits in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different contexts, to recreate a symbolic representation of reality through reassembling bits and pieces of words that create thoughts, that then create feelings, that then create actions, that create body sensations, that lead to a state of being. So we cut the world into pieces, and then we reassemble the pieces in a variety of unique ways to create unique models of reality that are not reality, but are our unique model of reality. And that's the descent into distinction. Now, the grid is our model of reality, but it's not real. The word hand, the word sand, the word panned is not real. It's a symbolic overlay on small portions of reality that we are vaguely aware of, right? The conscious mind is conscious through the lens of thought on the foundation of language. And its version, its map of reality is not real, except when it is believed by the conscious mind. When it is believed, it becomes real to the mind that is viewing reality through that lens. Now, that lens is a polarizing lens, because if you just have one word, one, you have no awareness of distinction, of thought. If you just have one word, one, that's the only word that's ever said, and it means everything. Everything, everything, everything. Your thoughts are somewhat limited or non-existent. You might have the idea, everything. That means all the things in everything that exists in the universe. So you have a few words to support the idea. But even that you can let go and just say, and there you are, right? That's it. That's the extent of reality. It's everything and it's nothing. There's no distinction. You haven't carved up the world into bits. There's nothing there. And there's everything there, right? Right. So that's not the world that we live in. We live in the recreated symbolic world on the foundation of language. We see the one through the lens of the distinctions we create with language. And so we cut the world in two. As we cut the one into two, there is pain, right? The separation from and the longing for the one is created as we cut the one into two. When we look through the lens of two, we no longer see the one, and there is a feeling of loss, right? We were one with the one, but now we are separate from the one, and the one is no longer one. We now see two, black and white, up and down, good and bad, her and him. We now see two, and out of the two come the infinite many, 256 million colors refracted out of black and white through a prism that divides light. 256 million points measured by a computer randomly, just the size the chip is capable of distinguishing. This color, this color, this color. Zeros and ones, dividing the one color spectrum into 256 million colors, and it could be a trillion, 10 trillion, 200 trillion colors. It's just that our chips, the zeros and ones capable of being held on our computer chips, are not big enough for a trillion colors in most cases, right? And in all cases are not big enough for a trillion, 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 trillion colors, right? It's too many zeros and ones. But of course, reality is big enough for as many trillion colors as we want. reality is big enough. You can refract an iris petal into as many colors as you want, as many dots as you want, as many subatomic particles as you want. It's an endless journey, deep into the micro, deep into the macro. You can create 10 trillion, 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 trillion distinctions. Or you can delete the language that creates the thought that in the illusion of human consciousness divides the one into many. Here we are, one. Every system of thought divides the one in a different way. This system of thought divides the one like this. It's as good as any other division. Why not divide it like this? Why not divide it like this? We can divide the one as many ways, as many times as we wish, right? And we create different maps, different renderings of the underlying reality by refracting the one in different configurations of mathematical and verbal language. But one of the things that we always get when we refract the one into many is a remainder. So let's look at that. So within the dualistic paradigm, when you cut the world in half and say that one half is good, then the other half is bad, right? So you have plus and then you have bad, right? The remainder is the bad. This is the good stuff, and then this is all the waste. This is the remainder, right? So when you divide the world in half, the remainder is 50%. So you have 50% waste, 50% enemy, 50% bad. It's all over here. Now, what happens when you call this 50% bad? What happens, right? How do you relate? Let's say you're in the bad group. You've all been there. You've entered a certain environment, and a certain perspective with a certain paradigm has said that you're the bad one. Go sit in your room. Go, you did this, right? You're bad. And so you go and sit in your room and maybe you say, yes, I'm bad. Little children do that. Or as an adolescent, it's no, they are bad, right? They're bad. They put me there. It's unfair. They should go and sit in their room, right? So once you get into the psychological state of the adolescent and you divide the world into two, that the terrorists and the righteous warriors, right? We just have to kill all the terrorists as the righteous warrior. And then the world will be in a good place, right? That's what we say, right? It doesn't work that way, does it, right? The righteous warriors killing the bad people, the terrorists. You see, the terrorists see it very differently. The terrorists see that their rights and their interest was not seen and and that the righteous warriors are the terrorists who are terrorizing them, where they have a noble cause to. Maybe it's protect the free markets, right? Various global governments want to cut down on people's right to consume opium, for example. And people say, no, we believe in free trade. We believe in open markets, that we have the right and they have the right to buy, and we have the right to sell, and we are the righteous warriors of free trade. We're just giving people what they want. And you're the terrorist. You killed my mother. You burned my field. You're the terrorist, right? So the trouble when you cut the world into two is it's always two equal halves. And usually the other side, the bad side, doesn't see it that way. Usually they see that if the good side, according to the good side, would just disappear and be dead or whatever, then the bad side would live happily ever after, right? If the police would just stop ruining the criminal's right to free creative expression, if the drug enforcement agencies would stop putting pesticides on natural fields just to kill off indigenous species because there might be some coca plants, you see. So if we divide the world into two, then we have the good side and the bad side, and we have two equal halves at war, right? Now, what's the problem? Is the bad side the problem? Is the good side the problem? Or is the divide the problem, right? Well, however you see it, and there's many points of view, you've got tension, right? You've got a battle. And it's not going to go anywhere. There's never been a time in the history of humanity where the self-appointed good side exterminated all of the bad side, right? Usually what's happened is the self-appointed good side, if they've been successful in battle, get bigger. Then they demand more and more taxation to feed their righteous cause, and they get even bigger still. And then people start to see them as the worst thing, right? If we could just get rid of the righteous warriors who are taking all our tax money and forcing us to do this and usurping our political will, then the world would be a better place, right? If we can get rid of the bad guys and get rid of the good guys, right? That seem to be becoming worse and worse by the day, right? That tends to be a lot more of the problem, right? So if you divide the world into two and decide that one part is better than the other, first of all, it's mathematically flawed. Secondly, there will be war. And thirdly, regardless of which side wins the war, if they keep growing in righteousness and size, they become a cancerous force feeding on that which they were originally there to protect, right? A military that gets too big becomes a cancerous sucking force on the population that it was designed supposedly to benefit, right? If everyone, for example, is in the military and nobody's in the bakeries and nobody's in the massage salons and no one is cooking and no one's gardening, then the military becomes the single biggest threat to the survival of the species precisely because it's too big. That it has absorbed all of the energy that it was originally intended to protect, right? So the remainder, if you divide the world into two, is 50%. But in this diagram over here, the remainder is here. Like we've got this little bit here, this little bit here, this little bit here, this little bit there. It's not such a big remainder. It's a more complex shape, but it's not the one, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a seven-sided representation of the one. It's got 7 distinctions, and it's this lovely, relatively symmetrical shape, but it's still got a remainder. There's a bit outside that doesn't fit inside the system. It's out here. It's in between the one that that is and the model of the one, that is the seven-sided shape. And so let's just call it 25%, that this seven-sided system produces 25 or 20% waste, a remainder of stuff that doesn't fit into the model of what is. Google Maps have a lot of waste. They show you the street signs and this and that and the other, but they don't tell you how many pine cones were on the nearest pine tree. They don't tell you how many hummingbirds flew by. They don't tell you how much dust is in the atmosphere and how much of it came from Africa and how much of it came from this desert and that desert. They don't tell you that, right? It just tells you the streets. Turn left here, that's the name. Turn right there, drive 3 miles. It's a very, very, very tiny representation of reality, which means that most of reality is outside of the box of that system. See, and there's an interesting pattern that happens anytime something's outside the box. For example, if employees in a company where the management are getting very, very rich and the employees are getting very, very poor, and the box of compensation for results all is shared by the managers and not by the employees, there's something very interesting that always happens. It's called sabotage. The system that creates outlaws is sabotaged by the outlaws that are created by the system. Whatever is outside the system will seek to undermine the system that makes it an outsider. Do you follow? Right? And you could say that these are the bad things. From the point of view of the system, we need to get this system in place. We've got to get this system running. If we don't do it, people will starve, da-da-da-da-da. So from the point of view of the system is a good thing. It's a crude representation of the sphere. And it's a good thing. It's got to be done. It's better than chaos. It's better than randomness. But the system creates a remainder. See, 5 divided by 3 creates a remainder. It's not a pure number. And so the remainder is outside of the system and seeks to undermine the system. So in this thing, we might ask then, what part of me is undermining the system that's leaving other parts of me out, right? Maybe I'm so excited to make millions of dollars, be popular, and be central to a system designed by my cult. But what about the part of me that just wants to wake up and roll around in the grass and think wordless thoughts and not have to go into work? Maybe that part is not honored within the system that is going to create this structured routine where I'm going to accomplish this and this and this, right? So that part then, as an outlaw of the system, go away, I'm now a successful person, I'm going to do that. That part will try to undermine the system that has no room for it. The psyche is far bigger than we can possibly imagine. The self has no particular boundary. It's just words. When we say this is who I am and this is who I'm not, right? The part that we say that we're not seeks to undermine the system that excludes it, right? You may notice that as soon as you say, I'm not going to have ice cream for a month, suddenly that part that likes ice cream says, wait a minute, you can't exclude me, and starts hammering away. I want some ice cream. I want some ice cream. It speaks up louder and louder, right? Tries everything it can to come up with an excuse to have some ice cream. So that's another way of looking at this tension. that our systems are too simple, lack the complexity to include vast regions of the psyche, vast regions of our probability field. And in so doing, we create an undertow, a current of self-sabotage as all of the parts of us that are walled off from the rest of us try to destroy the walls that we're using to orchestrate the energy flow to create the system that creates a given reality that we are calling success. There's also a pull towards oneness, right? I look at my abuser, I hate him, I'm disgusted by him. He's got to be stopped, right? It's got to be stopped, right? But there's also, within the one, there's a pull that is drawing us all together. And that pull to go back to the oneness may prefer understanding and compassion of my enemy to judgment and disdain and superiority. You see, we start off as part of the one. And as we divide the one into many, we create a hierarchy. This person is more important than this person within the hierarchy, not outside the hierarchy. Nature has no such hierarchy, but within the hierarchy, this is the person you want to talk to around this. That's a very important person. And in the process, we create very unimportant people. And the very unimportant people who nobody wants to talk to, who no one wants to listen to, are not happy about that, for one. But also there's a loneliness as we start to learn the ropes and the ranks, that this is the important person and that isn't. There's a division. And the part of us that longs to be one, the part of us that longs to return to the one, one of its tricks is to become those we think we are inferior or superior to. Right? I think I'm so superior to you. That's separate. I am above. I'm separate from. If I'm just like you, then there's unity. But if I think I'm superior to you, now I'm separate. You're inferior. I'm superior. There's a lot of loneliness within language. There's a lot of loneliness within distinctions. There's a lot of loneliness in judgments of good and bad. And there's a lot of loneliness in superiority. And if we become, like, one of the more common patterns, like I noticed that my parents engaged in a variety of things, lying, betraying, blaming, whining, making it all about themselves, etc. Things that I find disgusting, right? It's just disgusting, sickening behavior, right? Wanting to find support and find an adult as a child and an adolescent, and instead finding these manipulative, narcissistic, whining little children that wanted to take things from me, that wanted to manipulate me, that wanted to lie to me. So disgusting, right? I'm better than that, right? I'm better than them, right? I'm not going to lie. I haven't lied, right? I don't lie. I've never told a lie to a friend or a partner, right? Never. I'd never be like that. That's disgusting behavior, right? But there's also a distinction, right? Because now I've made myself better than my parents. They lied. It hurt me every time. Now I'm better than them. I don't lie. And they didn't need to lie either, right? It hurt every time they lied. And then lied about lying, right? So disgusting. I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to tell the truth, right? But I've now separated myself from my entire lineage, right? And there is a certain force of becoming the abuser, right? Becoming what we look down on, right? So I'm not going to lie, I'm going to do this. But there is a certain pull, right? That if we cannot forgive and understand and empathize with and say, well, I'm not going to lie, but I'm not really better than my parents. I'm just in a different generation. I had different setups. I learned different habits. I had different opportunities. I had opportunities that my parents gave me that their parents didn't give them. And I never needed to lie the way they did. They were in so much pain and they didn't know how to solve it. So they started lying to themselves just to numb it, just to, because if you're truly incompetent, right? Let's dive into this a little bit. Here's a 20-ton shipment of screws. You've got to get those to New York. Do it. What do I do? Just do it, right? Where's the car? There isn't one. Where's the train? No train around here. Just get these 20 tons to New York. What happens if I don't? You're a bad person. You're going to be punished. No one's going to love you. I'm going to hate you. You get those screws to New York or you're nothing, right? So one of the things that you could do there, if you're, you don't want to be nothing, you don't know how to get 20 tons of screws to New York. But one of the things you could do is just cross out the signpost that says Missouri and write New York. My goodness, I'm not a bad person. Here's New York and here's the screws, right? So my parents may have discovered this technique, a way to calm the dread and anxiety by lying to themselves about what was going on, right? They didn't have to forgive because there was nothing to forgive, right? It's a wonderful, wonderful spiritual shortcut. Or, this isn't abuse. This is love, right? I don't have to learn how to stop abusing my children. I just cross out the words abuse. Such a dirty word, isn't it? Just get rid of it. Cross it out. And then love. I love you. I love you. I would like you to appreciate how much I love you, because now that we've crossed out the word abuse and written the word love, you should appreciate how much I love you, right? And so this is wonderful, right? It's absolutely wonderful. We don't have to figure out how to stop the intergenerational abuse pattern. We have to figure out how to get our kids to be grateful for all the why settle it, love, when you could just write another word? Unconditionally. It's wonderful, right? Unconditional. So easy, right? You just write it in, loving unconditionally. Now go do this and don't do that and don't do that and don't talk back or you won't get any dinner, right? And I say that with unconditional love, right? So it's so wonderful, and maybe I just didn't appreciate how intelligent my parents were to come up with all of these games, to do absolutely nothing and feel great about it. And then, one day it's unconditional love, then it's enlightenment, then we're making progress, right? So wonderful, right? But this is actually pretty intelligent if you lack the resources, the competency to do anything else. It's rather dumb if you've got a train sitting there that you could get the screws to New York. But we are often met with demands, right? And so what I'm saying when I look at my parents with contempt, right? So disgusting. Even I, a 10-year-old, can see through your dumb lies, right? And you can't even admit they're a lie. Oh, God, so pathetic, right? Pathetic. Disgusting. Well, that helps me go from feeling small and helpless to feeling superior, right? I felt so small, like Mom didn't remember what she promised. I feel so small. I'm not even important enough to keep a promise. And then you didn't even remember that you lied? You created a whole alternate version of reality just so that you wouldn't have to apologize to how lonely and small I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. Oh, what a disgusting bitch. What a disgusting bitch. Coward, hypocrite, right? I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to tell the truth, and the world is going to be a better place, right? I'm going to admit my faults. I'm not going to make it even, I'm going to do that. So we have contempt, we have separation. I'm not going to be like that. I want nothing to do with that behavior, right? Right? And yet, one, right? Of course, there's a situation in which I would grow up just like my parents, right? Of course, there's a situation in which I would grow up like Adolf Hitler, right? I didn't have that particular set of things, right? But I can understand, right? Just read Hitler's biography, read my parents' biography. But I don't want to be, I want to focus on what's good for me. I don't want to focus on understanding why they betray me over and over and over again. I don't want that, right? That's just bad. It shouldn't happen to kids. And I'm not going to do it to my children. I'm better than that, right? So there's a part that wants to dissociate from such hurt and such suffering and such cruelty, because it feels horrible. But there's also a part that wants to be one, that wants to be a family, that doesn't, that wants to let go. But if we can't let go with forgiveness and understanding and empathy, I think that sometimes we let go by becoming what we despise, and then learning to understand ourselves, and then understanding and letting go of the abuser, right? So if I can't forgive the abuser's behavior and why they did it and all that, if I become that and then forgive myself, then I'm no longer above or below anyone else. So some of the reasons I think that we sabotage ourselves from our attempts to ascend and dissociate, I'm better than this group of people, is we undermine that because there's a deeper need to understand our connection, to understand that, yes, if I was given 20 tons of nails to ship to New York over and over again, and was beaten and shamed for not doing it without any means of doing it, And then one day I discovered that lying stopped the beating. Here we are, we're in New York, right? And the beating stopped for whatever reason. That I could be trained to lie as well. And so one of the drives to self-sabotage is to stop the movement away from ourselves, from the one that we are innately a part of. There can also be love. I don't want, you see, because when one person excels, and in a meritocracy, the smart person, the successful person, the lucky person gets 99% of the good stuff. The sex, the girls, the mansion, the rank, the fame, whatever it is the cult says is good. In a meritocracy, a small percentage of people get most of that. Because a small percentage of people are talented in a way that dovetails with the particular metric of merit. If basketball is the meritocracy, a small percentage of people are taller and more muscular and more coordinated than everyone else. So they get to be top of the league. If the game is investing, a small percentage of people are highly focused on numbers and pay a great deal of attention and enjoy calculating things, right? And so they make all the money. A small percentage of people are unusually symmetrical in the face and charming and get all the sex and all the attention, right? So whatever the meritocracy is, a small percentage of people are going to get most of it. And everyone else who has been taught by the cult to value their value based on the meritocracy. How many baskets, how many hoops did you get in the game? Well, I got 3. Well, they got 7. Let's give all the money and all the stuff to them. Because you're not tall enough. Just be tall. Be tall. Next year, a little bit taller. And you'll get all of this as well. But, of course, the problem isn't the fact that someone is shorter. The problem is that that particular game is skewed to reward a very tiny group of people who happen to fit the niche of that game. Doesn't matter if it's investing, sex, basketball, soccer, history, travel, whatever the meritocracy is, as soon as you decide that this trait and you have to do this particular thing and the winner gets everything, then most of the people lose most of the time. And so there's envy. I want to get that, but I can't get it. So one of the reasons we can undercut ourselves is, I don't want to upset everyone that I've got all this stuff. So I could win in the meritocracy, but I'm not going to. I say I'm a winner. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this and I can do this and I'm a great this. But then I stub my toe. I forget my car keys. I come late to the interview. So I never get up there. And then nobody hates me because they want to be up there, right? So that's another thing. Like, some part of me thinks that I want all this, but another part says, no, I don't want that. I just want people to look at me without seeing any threat here. And if I climb up the top of this meritocracy, I will be a threat to all the other people who are trying to climb, and I will be a source of envy to those who cannot get up there. So that's another framework for understanding the part that says no to whatever it is that we decide is successful. Now, another is revenge, another agenda in the yes and no kind of continuum, is one of the things that is necessary to justify revenge is thoughts like, they ruined my life. Now, if they didn't ruin your life, it's hard to take revenge. What if your abuser raped you, and because they raped you, you decided to get a degree in psychology to figure out what was going on. And because you got a degree in psychology, you're more psychologically literate than 99% of the population. And because you're more psychologically literate, you picked a really great partner, and you've helped a lot of children. You've got a very satisfying life that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't been raped. Now, just imagine that story and then saying, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. How dare they ruin my life? But if my life went down, right, I was raped, then I was shamed at school because people learned I was raped, and then I couldn't go to school because it was too humiliating. And then my grades plummeted. Then I couldn't go to college. And it's all because that fucking bastard raped me, right? I'm going to kill him, right? We understand that, right? So sometimes reality creates the kind of result. You know, you add up that equation, and wanting to kill the person that took everything you valued and gave you your worst pains, and now you're just stuck in endless amounts of pain, going nowhere. Can't even leave. You become you can't leave the house now, right? You hate yourself. Now you're drinking, right? Oh, that guy, if I could just see him and shoot him, right? So sometimes all of that naturally leads to revenge. But sometimes we want revenge, and we have to destroy parts of our lives so that the revenge makes sense. I want to get him. How dare they do that to me, right? Well, that naturally dissipates if you have a great life, but I'm not going to. I'm going to, every time I think about that. In fact, let me pause right now and relive every detail. This happened, then that happened. Can you believe it? And that led directly to this, right? I'm all worked up. Now I can't sleep. I'm going to wake up for my important interview tomorrow, and I'm not going to get it because I'm enraged, right? I'm going to seek revenge. Sometimes the seeking of revenge undermines any chance of a great life, because if we were really happy and delighted, that's incompatible with desiring to punish someone for making us so happy, right? Right? And it also, if we're really, really happy and excited about things, we don't want to waste our time getting revenge. We want to live our happy life, right? Why should we give all that up, right? So there's a tension there. They deserve to suffer for what they did. But I want a great life. And I can't have a great life if I'm busy making them suffer for what they did, right? And so both can be there, right? The attachment to revenge can keep sabotaging the life. And then we don't want to grow and be happy. We want revenge. And so we can't be happy. So we keep undermining the happiness. And then sometimes, we find ourselves in revenge because we just can't keep up with one thing leading to another thing after another thing, and the pain just skyrockets, and it's all because so-and-so did this. So both of those phenomena, can relate to, the voice that says no to an opportunity, to being successful, right? There can also be beliefs, right? We learned that when we whined, so reality plus whining equals success. An infant wasn't getting its milk. Ah! Nothing. Okay, let's bring it up and up. Ah! Milk arrives. Wonderful. Whining leads to success. So we're going along and we're not whining, right? We want some new thing that we want. And so a part of us says we have to scream, we have to whine, we have to complain. And another part says, no, we're not a kid anymore. Another part says, yes, we are a kid, and this is what works, right? So one of the yes-no divides is between the regressive, meaning the younger parts of ourselves and their strategies for success, and the progressive, the older parts of ourselves and their new strategies. So we come up with this great strategy of being relaxed and prepared and happy, and people saying, how you doing? And we say, great. But then nobody says, well, what's great? We say, well, you got an hour to talk about what's great? And they say, no, I don't. But then, when we say we're miserable, we're about to get a divorce, oh, tell me all about it, right? So if we're in a cult that is very interested in macabre suffering and misery, and we want to engage, we want attention, we want to feel important, then we've got to create some macabre suffering and misery so that people will listen for an hour. You don't want to have to pay a therapist. Well, we've got to, even then, we've got to come up. We can't just say our life is so great, we thought we would pay you to hear about it. No. Well, what's your problem? What is my problem? Well, I'll create one. Here's a problem. And then we can deal with it. So the need for attention in negative-oriented cults creates a good basis to fail so that you can get attention. But also, the need for success with a history of pain leading to sympathy, for example, rather than everything going wonderful. So then all the parts that are young in us vote, don't have it work out well, trip, be late to the interview, leave your keys over here, and then they don't find them and look right over them, right? And then you arrive late and you fail. It's like, why am I sabotaging? You're not sabotaging at all. You're setting yourself up to be able to whine so that you'll get what you want that way by people that reward whining like they used to, right, when you were 2 years old. And so there's just different strategies. It's like old computer programs that haven't been deleted that are running. Need something? Whine and scream. You now need something. Whining and screaming will not get it to you, but some part of you doesn't know that. And so they whine and scream. You don't get it. You say, why did I whine and scream? Because some part of you wanted it and remembers a time when you would have gotten it. There can also be limited, right, within a cult hierarchy, a meritocracy. You may have been told that shooting the most hoops, practicing 8 hours a day, becoming a basketball champion is the way forward, the way, because it will lead to college and scholarships and this and this, and that's what we want for you, son, right? But some part of you has other things you'd rather do, right? And your parents are not going to listen to you. No one is going to listen to you if you say, you know what, I'd really like to read biographies of mystics. That's what I want to do. I want to read biographies of mystics, and I want to learn 300 ways of meditating. Son, that's not going to get you into college. That's not going to get you laid. The recruiters are not going to hire you for that. When we go to the neighbors and have barbecue and say, what's going on with my son's in this and my son's in that, and my son dropped out of school and he's studying 300 ways to meditate, reading mystics. That's not going to make us feel important. Please. You've got the height to shoot basketball, right? So sometimes you can't argue with all that, right? And where do you have the thought process? But some part of you that wants to do something different may just break a leg so that you can miss the basketball season, so that all that pressure goes away, so that you can read the biography section. Stuck in the hospital. Bring me some more biographies, right? As the only way that nobody's going to be mad at you. So, what this boils down to is sometimes the cult-ordained goal at the top of the pinnacle isn't right. It doesn't feel right for you. It's not where you want to go. It's not who you want to be. But just telling everyone, no, I'm going to blow the chance to be a sports champion, chance to have a scholarship, to have the chance what all you think is so great, and I'm going to do something you all think is really dumb because I just have a feeling about that. That doesn't have anything to do with this cult. It's too hard. Everyone is going to look away and ostracize me. But if I was going there and then I broke my leg and I could say, yeah, I was so interested in that. And then, well, what can you do? And they say, oh, don't be hard on yourself. Here, have another biography, right? It's lucky you're so interested in studying. And you've got a good attitude from giving up such a great opportunity. Say, yeah, I know, I think on the bright side. Now I'm in hospital, I get to read all the books I wanted to read. So there's a variety of different angles to look at this pattern of saying yes and no. There's also self-hatred, right? I don't want to succeed. I hate myself. I want to punish myself. And I want to punish everyone around me. So I'm not going to succeed. I'm going to fail. And everyone's going to get upset. And I'm going to enjoy it, right? I'm going to punish others for hurting and bullying me and bossing me and not listening to my feelings. I'm going to hurt myself, and they're going to be uncomfortable. They're going to feel miserable, right? I'm tired of endlessly being cogs in other people's wheels and being hurt and not being able to hurt back, right? So there's a whole variety of different lenses to look at this pattern of part of me says yes and part of me says no. So as we wrap this out, take a moment to look at an area of your own life where you part of you think this is the way to go, and part of you is sabotaging it. You're not doing it. You're tripping and falling. You're putting your foot in your mouth right when you need to be lucid. You're eating the wrong food to make sure you wouldn't be conditioned for that. And you get close to that. Here, let me quickly do this. Let's stay up all night doing this. And thank goodness the opportunity has passed. I don't have to confront that. Look at an area where you're saying no to something you think you could say yes, and take a moment to consider. Is it the longing to go home, the longing to be one, the longing to stop being inferior or superior? Is it the kindness of not wanting to outshine someone or make them jealous and uncomfortable, and again be ostracized? Is it self-punishment? I don't deserve this, and so I need to punish myself. Is it punishing other people? I'm going to fail and they're going to try and help me and it's not going to work and I'm going to fail and punish them for all the things that they made me feel. Is it the outside parts, the peripheral parts that we don't look at in our shadow, light and dark, that are undermining the structure that ostracizes us from large portions of ourselves? Is it a goal that we don't actually deeply want and feel, but we are advised is the way to go? Who is the one that says yes, and who is the one that says no? What are the feelings? What are the thoughts? Is it an ancient program that we've never undone? Right? You can spend as much time with that question as you like.